On June 3rd, President Trump signed an executive order that could fundamentally change how brands and foreign businesses import goods into the United States. And most of the brands that I've talked to have no idea this happened. The order targets something called the Importer of Record, or IOR. That's the legal entity responsible for every shipment that enters the US. And if you've been using your freight forwarder or a third-party IOR service, or a foreign company as your importer, this directly affects you. I've got clients dealing with this right now, and in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break down what the executive order actually says, who's at risk, and what your options are, because the clock is ticking. So what is the importer of record? I'll be brief. So when your goods enter the United States, someone must legally be the importer of record. And normally this entity files a customs entry with the CBP, pays import duties and taxes, signs the customs declaration, and is legally liable for compliance with all US import laws. This is not the factory, not the freight forwarder by default. It's whoever is named on the customs entry as the importer. Now this matters because the IOR is on the hook. If the goods are mislabeled, undervalued, made with forced labor, or non-compliant, then the IOR faces the penalties, not the factory in China or elsewhere. Now many founders launching a footwear or consumer product brand don't have a US company, or they have a US LLC but it has no real assets or employees. In both cases, they often use their freight forwarder or a third-party IOR service company as their nominal importer. That arrangement is what this executive order is targeting. So what does this executive order actually do? It directed DHS and CBP to revise IOR eligibility rules within 180 days. The full rules aren't finalized yet. CBP will publish them by approximately December 1st, 2026. But the direction is crystal clear. Under the new definition of foreign IOR, that is any entity that lacks all of the following: U.S. organization incorporated under U.S. law, principal place of business in the U.S., physical presence with significant business activity in the U.S., sufficient tangible assets or real property in the U.S., U.S. citizens, or lawful permanent residents as controlling beneficial owners. Note the word significant. A registered agent address in Delaware with $100 in a bank account does not qualify. So now foreign IORs will face new rules. First, no more informal entries. These are prohibited. This matters because informal entries are used for smaller, lower value shipments. Foreign IORs can no longer use this channel at all. Second, restricted bond use for formal entries. They can't use a continuous bond unless CBP approves it. They must either be CTPAT validated themselves or file through a CTPAT validated licensed customs broker. They must have minimum domestic asset and bond thresholds. Every IOR must maintain minimum tangible US assets and or bonding. Thresholds not yet published, but they're coming. 4. Mandatory disclosures. So anticipated import volumes, full ownership structure, beneficial ownership, business affiliations, and domestic asset disclosures. 5. IOR registry cleanup and risk tiering. So CBP will remove inactive IORs, confirm active ones are compliant, and create risk-based tiers based on compliance history. Now lastly, number 6, enhanced vetting of freight forwarders. So forwarders who act as IORs face the same scrutiny. Now here are 3 scenarios so you can see which one are you to figure out what to do. Scenario A, you use your freight forwarder or a third-party IOR service. So this is the highest risk scenario. Your forwarder may already be a valid IOR, but under the new rules, if they're treated as a foreign IOR, so they don't have any US entity or they don't meet the new US presence tests, they can no longer file informal entries, must be CTPAT validated to file formal entries, and face much higher bonding requirements. Many freight forwarders who have been offering IOR services as a convenience for clients may exit that business entirely rather than meet the new requirements. If your forwarder is your IOR, ask them right now, what is your CTPAT status? What are you doing to comply with EO 14411? If they don't have a clear answer, you need a plan B. Scenario B. You have a US LLC, but it's mostly a shell. So a Delaware or Wyoming LLC with no employees, minimal bank activity, and a registered agent as the only US address. This was enough before, but under the new rules, CBP will look for significant business activity and sufficient tangible US assets. A shell LLC likely won't meet that bar. So we have a client that we've worked with previously who set up a US LLC for IOR purposes. And under this new definition, they don't have any employees, they don't have US assets or really any meaningful activity. They most likely will get classified as a foreign IOR anyway. So scenario C, you have a real US operation. You're US incorporated, you have US employees, US bank account with real assets controlled by US persons. You're almost certainly fine. The order is explicitly targeting the entities using shell structures to evade enforcement, not legitimate US-based businesses. So how long do you have? The order was signed on June 3rd, 2026, and the 180-day implementation window means final rules come into effect approximately December 1st. 2026. So here's a few key milestones you should keep in mind. On September 1st, which is around a 90-day mark, there will be revised penalty standards, new foreign export documentation requirements, and CBP starts publishing enforcement transparency reports. On December 1st, approximately 180 days after the signing, new IOR eligibility regulations live, bonding and asset minimums published, IOR registry updated with risk tiers, and enhanced vetting begins. And on June 2027, approximately 1 year later, CBP submits effectiveness report to the president. So why December doesn't mean wait till November? CTPAT certification takes months. Applications, site visits, validation processes. Establishing a legitimate US entity with real assets and business activity takes time, and the best customs brokers and trade lawyers are already booked out with clients working on this. Bond requirements will increase, so you should get ahead of the pricing. So what you should do right now. Step 1. Know your current IOR on every shipment. So pull your last 5 to 10 US customs entries and find out exactly who is listed as IOR. You'd be surprised how many founders don't actually know. Ask your broker for a copy of your CBP Form 7501. Step 2. Assess your IOR against the new foreign IOR definition. So does your current IOR have a US organization, meaningful US presence, real US assets, US beneficial ownership? If the answer to any of those is not really, you have work to do. Step 3. If your forwarder is your IOR, call them today. Ask, are you CTPAT certified? What's your plan for the December 2026 IOR rules? Do not assume they have it handled. Step 4. If you need a real US entity, start now. This isn't just incorporation. It's a US bank account, US EIN number, registered US address with real activity, and ideally US assets. This could take 3 to 6 months to establish properly with a track record CBP will accept. And lastly, step 5. Talk to a customs attorney or trade compliance specialist, not a general business lawyer. A customs attorney or licensed customs broker with trade compliance experience. That's who you need. The rules aren't finalized yet. A specialist will track the CBP guidance as it drops and advise you in real time. And in the past month or so, we've been advising clients on this and working with them along with various specialists to help them figure out how to go about doing this. Because whether you choose to register for a US entity for the IOR going forward or work with a compliant IOR, that really depends on your trade volume, how many shipments you do and the value of your shipments. So it's not a clear-cut answer. So that's something that we've been working with our clients on and you should keep in mind. This isn't happening in isolation. Over the past 6 months, tariffs changed, the MINIS rules tightened, CPSC e-filing went mandatory, and now IOR enforcement is being overhauled. The US government is systematically closing the loopholes that allow foreign brands to ship informally, undervalue, and import without real accountability. For founders building a serious US business, the brands that survive this environment are the ones who treat import compliance as a fixed cost of doing business, not a problem to defer until CBP knocks. And there's opportunity. Most of your competitors may not be thinking about this. If you get your import structure right now, you have a clean advantage. If you missed part 1 of this series, I covered CPSC e-filing mandate that went live on July 8th. Different topic, but equally important. Link is in the description below. The checklist I used to audit a brand's import structure, IOR setup, bond coverage, classification, and valuation is in the description. You can go download it. If you want a proper review of your import structure and whether you'd be classified as a foreign IOR under the new rules, my team can do that. Link in the description. If you found this useful, please subscribe. This is going to keep evolving as CBP publishes the final rules, and I'll keep covering it. Thank you.